Come closer. Keep your voice down. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, I'm stepping out of the studio and speaking to you from the shadows as the Wanderer. We are standing right at the edges of the main plaza of The Last Man. It's this sprawling, grim theater, completely enveloped in a gothic dusk. I actually have a secret truth to share with you, hidden within a series of intercepted notes we're going to examine today. Let's open up this dark fable and see exactly how the rigid architecture of our lives is about to be entirely dismantled. Our very first intercepted note carries a pretty chilling warning. It reads, "The ink is wet and the page is damp." You see, the crowd out there and the plaza, they are basically huddling in this wretched contentment. They're waiting for a rigid, heavily scripted tragedy that just affirms their perfectly ordered, predictable lives. But there's a storm of unscripted chaos brewing right under their noses. The play that's about to begin? It's definitely not the one they paid to see. Part 1. The Theater of the Script. To really understand the impending chaos, we first have to understand the audience, these stifled souls of The Last Man. They suffer from what we call calcified expectations. These observers possess this merciless intellect, demanding absolute certainty from their fictions because they're absolutely terrified that a single unscripted word might rupture the infinite dungeon of their daily existence. So they force their own souls into this rigid gate, literally using an iron hammer to nail their fluttering spirits to a permanent floor. They just crave a gray blueprint that tells them exactly where to sit and exactly when to weep. But crouching in the white spaces of the map are the spirit siblings. Think of them as three beast-like harbingers of chaos, all with one singular motive: to completely dismantle this calcified script. We have the eldest, the wit, who absolutely despises vanity and targets the lead actor using a distorting mirror. Then there's the middle child, the hunger. The hunger starves for true unpredictability, targeting the plot itself by literally inhaling its rigid logic. And finally, the youngest, the small, who seeks to liberate the stage using artful mistakes. Let's dive deep into the parables of their individual attacks. Note 1. The paper protagonist. The first detailed note we intercepted concerns the star of our show. He's out there strutting across the stage in heavy robes of velvet and grease paint. Now, this actor projects a mask of absolute authority. He genuinely believes himself to be this edifice of immutable stone. But the wit? The wit stares right through the disguise. With an internal sneer, the wit sees nothing but paper mache, held together by the trembling hands of a man who is just desperately begging for applause. "Observe the fool," the wit whispers from the shadows. You see, it only takes one sharp quip, one burst of cynical laughter to completely shatter the gothic dusk of this stage. The wit exposes that the dramatic, life-or-death stakes of the script are actually utterly hollow. And when that protagonist's mask finally slips, the entire edifice of vanity just collapses into a heap of delightful absurdity. Note 2. The nutritious plot. Let's shift our focus over to the wings. The playwright is standing there, tightly clutching a script woven from these precise equations of dialogue and law. To the playwright, those lines are an impenetrable fortress. But to the middle sibling, the hunger, those precise equations are merely nutritious. The hunger completely despises artificial structure. It sits there, salivating, feeling the void in the logic, just waiting to violently pull at the delicate threads of order holding the whole story together. And when the hunger finally strikes, it completely consumes the audience's rigid expectations. It inhales the predictable climax, that grim decree of execution everyone was waiting for, and spits it back out as a wet, black slurry. The result is total cacophony. The audience is left sitting there gasping, asking, how did this happen? The hunger has successfully replaced a suffocating order with a messy, bleeding, completely unscripted improvisation. Note 3. The impending hiccup. I have to confess, earlier tonight, I was actually standing right there in the crowd, totally hollowed out, gripping my very own iron hammer of skepticism. I was completely unaware of the youngest sibling, the small, dancing right at my ankles. Now, she doesn't use cynical laughter or gaping voids. She uses artful mistakes. We're talking about a sudden hiccup in the orchestra pit, a spilled lamp of ceremonial oil upon the stage, just a sudden unexpected breeze. Now, these might seem like really minor disruptions, right? But they are the exact weapons needed to trip up those stiff, breathless observers right out of their rigid gate. The audience paid for a tragedy of forced order, a reinforcement of their infinite dungeon. But through her artful mistakes, the small transforms the night into a decree of desert. She ruptures the prison, literally tripping you up so that your calcified bones are forced to remember how to dance again. Part 5. The superiority of improvisation. So why do the siblings do all of this? Why tear down the moral cathedrals of the last man? Well, because they believe in the absolute superiority of improvisation. Just witness this unraveling act. First, the stifled soul takes its seat, demanding the blueprint. But then, Act 2, the witch shatters that illusion of authority. Next, the hunger melts those rigid laws into a slurry. And finally, Act 4, the small breathes actual spontaneous life back into the room. That gray tapestry of order literally melts into a vibrant living chaos. And this brings us to the core philosophy of the siblings, the living ink. This is the fluid, unscripted reality they are fighting so hard for. You see, a messy improvisation is vastly superior to a scripted tragedy because it actually shatters the prison of the expected. When the ink is allowed to smudge, when the page remains damp, it ensures that the very next line of your life is entirely free. It allows the human spirit to actually breathe. Part 6. The hammer melts to wood. Let me tell you about my own existential transformation tonight as I record this final note. I arrived here clutching the iron hammer of my merciless intellect, fiercely defending those static moral cathedrals. But then came the artful trip. The small caught me entirely off guard, and I slipped right on that spilled oil. And you know what? As I fell, as I finally laughed out loud, my calcified bones actually moved. My heavy iron hammer of skepticism melted right in my hands, transforming into a lightweight wooden jester's wand. I came here a stiff skeptic, and these siblings turned me into a liberated dancing fool. So, I'm going to leave you with this question, speaking to you right now as the newly crowned jester of the plaza. If the scripted tragedy of your life, all those rigid blueprints, that desperate need for absolute certainty, is really just papier mâché, are you finally brave enough to drop your iron hammer? Are you ready to let the living ink smudge and fully embrace the unscripted chaos? Think about that the next time you take your seat. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and let the ink bleed.